Hi friend, today I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If you're looking for a film camera as a beginner that you can travel with without breaking the bank or breaking your back, I have the right recommendation for you. You know which camera it is? It's the Canon A1. This is the only travel camera you're gonna need, and let me tell you why. I have traveled across Mexico, through Colombia, and of course in the United States with this amazing film camera right here, and I definitely recommend it. This is the first film camera I started shooting with a couple years ago, and I love using it for travel photography. Now let's get into it. Originally released in 1978, the Canon A1 is historically significant. It was actually quite revolutionary at the time because it was one of the first cameras to have automatic mode. So based on the ISO setting, it will expose and choose the shutter speed and aperture for you without even having to think about it. And that is my first reason why this camera is great for beginners to film, because of the automatic mode. The automatic mode means that you can shoot effortlessly, pretty much without thinking about it. You basically just point your camera at what you want to shoot, and the light meter inside is going to know how to expose that correctly with, the right shutter speed and the right aperture. Super easy. I usually set my camera to aperture priority so I can choose the aperture while the camera does the rest of the work on choosing the shutter speed. I like having the control over the depth of field, so the aperture priority setting is what I like to shoot with. But yeah, you can shoot in full automatic and also have a really cool look of film with this camera. This is a really nice feature that simplifies the whole process of taking photos, which is why this is such a great camera for travel. This camera also has an interchangeable lens. As you can see, I could change this lens if I wanted to a different focal length. I like shooting with this one, but that feature is nice because you get a little bit more control. It's a bit of a step above just a standard point and shoot camera. So if you're really looking to get into film photography and looking to take your practice a step farther, then it's worthwhile to just go ahead with that rather than just getting like a point and shoot camera, which doesn't allow you a lot of creative control. So with the Canon A1, you get the beautiful look of film, you get the interchangeable lens, and the ease and flexibility of automatic mode. So this is just a win. So now the one thing you do want to consider when you're traveling with a camera is the weight. All right, this camera is a little bit heavy, but it's not too heavy if you ask me. I used to shoot with my digital camera, my Canon Mark IV, and that was a great camera. It's professional quality and was outstanding, but it was so heavy that I wouldn't bring it on my trips, and I would actually bring my film camera instead because it was lighter. And for me, this is really important. I'm not able to carry around a heavy backpack without getting really sore and cranky. So traveling with this has been a lot easier for me. It's not the lightest film camera that you could probably find out there, but honestly, in comparison to the Mark IV, this was pretty small. This camera also fits really nicely in my backpack, and usually I just bring one lens, so it's been a really great fit for me. And also it's pretty durable, like it's made out of metal, so I haven't really scratched it up that much. Of course, you could always get a cover for it too, so you don't worry about damaging it, but this is like a hefty, strong, durable camera, which is nice. Now let's talk about the dollar bills, aka how much this camera costs. All right, this camera, you might look at it and be like, ooh, that's a nice camera, but actually, this is not gonna cost you an arm and a leg. It's, I guess vintage. Really, you can find this camera for $150 less. I think if you're paying over $150, you're probably getting a bad deal, so look somewhere else. but you could look on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Amazon I think sells some, or even an antique store. I know that I always see lenses for this camera around like the flea markets that I go to in Los Angeles, so it's pretty common, so you shouldn't have any trouble like finding gear for it, finding a lens for it, finding a flash if you want to use a flash. So that's a really big pro of this camera. If you are buying your camera on eBay, just make sure to watch out for scams and try to buy from a reputable seller who has good reviews. I've purchased cameras on eBay and that's been fine. Just like make sure that, you know, this looks legit. Personally, I got my Canon A1 from my mom. She wasn't using it anymore, and so she told me, you know, take it. And so I had it in my closet actually for years, and it was collecting dust, and I didn't really pull it down until I got really bored over the pandemic. And I looked at it and it was in great condition, so that's when I started shooting with this. Let's talk about the cons of this camera. There are a couple, so you might want to think about that as a beginner. The first one, most obvious one, is it doesn't have an autofocus. So you do have to focus manually with this by like twisting the front of it. Personally, I think that that's kind of a pro. Like for me, as a hobbyist, like as someone I enjoyed, you know, film photography, I think that that's fun, you know, like that's part of the experience of going out and shooting with this film camera and traveling with it, is that I get to spend time immersing and really getting into my surroundings. So I like the non-autofocus feature. It also helps me control too what I want to focus on. So, but that might be a con for a beginner, so I'm just letting you know that's something to keep in mind. Another con for some people might be that the shutter speed hits a maximum of 1,000. So that might be a little bit low for some people if you're shooting in a really bright condition and you're wanting to shoot at a high aperture. I think for beginners that probably won't be an issue. So, but you know, just something so you know. Lastly, why shoot with film when you travel? I actually shoot with both if I can. I like shooting digital and film when I travel. I like film when I travel because it feels so timeless, and it also really helps me get into where I'm going and learn about the destination in a really interesting and different way. So that's why I love film photography when I go on my trips. But you might find that you like traveling with a digital camera more. I think half the fun is coming home and getting your shots developed and getting all your film processed and seeing what the final result is. I think that it's kind of agonizing waiting for your film to see what, you know, the outcome, but at the same time, how often do we get the chance to do anything like that anymore when we're so used to like instant responses? I'm also way more mindful when I shoot, when I travel, because every shot counts more than digital. Whereas when I shoot digital, I'll just be like, yes, 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 like, and I'll just like take a bunch of shots. So I think that I've become a better photographer through experimenting with film and focusing on composition and framing and lighting, because every shot is so valuable and special. Another great thing about shooting with film when you travel is that the image quality is going to be so nice. The great thing about film is that you really can't replicate it with digital. Yes, there's a lot of presets and filters that you can add onto your shot after with digital photography, but there really is something timeless with film. There's a character and a quality to it that is just really can't be replicated, in my opinion, on digital yet. So if you're new to film photography and you don't know much about it yet at all, one thing to consider is when you shoot 35mm, it has a certain character to it. You're making a choice by shooting 35mm. It's not going to be quite as crisp and clean as digital, and also medium format is a whole nother realm, a whole nother beast that also has like a much higher clarity as well. So 35mm is probably the easiest entry point to film, but remember, film it has a character, it has a bit more grain to it. So keep that in mind with your shooting. That also depends on the film stock that you're shooting with, and I can do another video on that. If you would like to see that, please leave me a comment. All right, friends, one more question before we go. What's your go-to travel camera? I really want to know. Please leave your answer in the comments below, and if you're thinking about making the switch to film, I totally want to know. So leave me a comment. Let's get chatting in the comments. And yeah, again, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Check out my other videos about travel and flying with film. I'll leave those links below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments. All right, thanks so much and happy travels.